Hello, welcome to my third module on JavaScript AI Developer course. Now, here I will present all about list. Now, what is a list? Now, in JavaScript, lists are typically represented using arrays. Now, this array now can store multiple values in a single variable and provide various methods for manipulation. So we can essentially manipulate it. Now, how do we create a list? We create a list by using square brackets. Now, of course, when we have the list now, we can access the elements. We usually access the elements by using the index, and it usually starts from 0. We can also modify the elements. And common array methods include, well, to add elements, we can use push. In this example, we will use push. Now, the push will just add it at the end. We can also use unshift. Well, we add it at the beginning, and we can remove also the elements. Usually we can use pop or splice. Now, the pop there will remove the last element, okay, and the splice will remove one or multiple elements from a specific index. In this example, we will try to use splice. Now, let me try to demonstrate that by creating this project. Now, this project is a to-do list manager. It will implement a basic to-do list app, add, view, and remove tasks. So all we need to do is to copy that and we paste it to perplexity.ai. Now here I pasted it, and we have instructed him to do a list manager that will implement basic tasks such as add, view, and remove. Now, additional description here is, of course, to generate the code in separate JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. And after a while, we have it. We have the HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript. Okay. Now, the HTML, of course, it will contain the structure, so we try to examine that first. So we copy that and we paste it to IntelliJ IDEA. So here I have created the folder, to-do list folder, and inside that we have the index.html, script.js, and style CSS. Now under the index.html, I pasted the code generated by Perplexity AI, and here we have it line by line. The usual heading, we have the character coding as UTF, and we have this with device weight initial scale to 1.0, which makes the page responsive on mobile devices. So that's the standard. And here we have the title. The title is simply task list, and of course we have to link it to the style or the CSS file for styling, and the file name is style.css, and we have the styles.css here. Okay, so that's styles. So let's try S. Okay, so here we have the heading, which is essentially H1. So that's the largest. So H1 is the highest section level, and H6 is the lowest. So by far H1 is the biggest. So let's try to see what it looks like. Okay, so here we click on JavaScript, and then we open it into the let's try to open it, sorry, the index.html. We open it in the browser. My browser is Chrome. Okay, so we have here the task list. So it is H1, so it's the biggest. So after that, we have the after the task list, we have this one. We have to have an task input. So that's the identification. That's the task input. It is a text, so the ID there is new task, and we have a placeholder. We have a placeholder which says that we have to enter a task. So that's essentially the input field. So here, let's try to see that if the placeholder there were we have a placeholder here, and the placeholder is really enter a task. So we can enter a task there. So it's essentially will take in a text. So we also have a button. So we have a function add task. Now this function add task is linked to our script.js. So our script.js will have those functions. So the function there is add task. So we can try to examine the add task later, but for now let's try to continue for the index. So here we have h2, so it's a little bit smaller. So in h2 there we have task. So here we will display all of the tasks that is essentially input by the user. So here we have the unordered list to display the task dynamically. So if the user will input task here, say for example task 1, task 2, and task 3, it will be displayed here at the bottom. So tasks will be dynamically added here by the JavaScript. So let's try to examine the JavaScript. So sorry, before the JavaScript, let's try to see the styling first. So here the styling is we apply styling to the enter page. So it's a sans serif, and it's around 20 pixel the margin. Add space around the page. So we have a styling for the task input section. So when we input the text, we have a task input there, and then the margin at the bottom is around 10 pixels. So that's a task input. So we have that is task input. Okay. After the task input, we have the unordered list. Then we have this list style. Type is none, set to none, so it removes the bullet points from the list. So we don't see any bullet points. So the padding is 0, so it removes the default padding. So in the list, we have a padding of 8. We have a border bottom of around 1, which is solid. So it would add a light gray border below each task, and it removes we will remove the border from the last task of the item, which is last child. Border bottom is set to none, and we also have a styling for the remove button inside each task. So if we generate a list on an ordered list, corresponding to that there will be a remove button. So the remove button will have essentially a cursor pointer, which will change to a pointer for better interface. So it's set to have a left margin of around 10 pixels. So it's add space between the task and the text and button. So we now go on to the script.js. And in the script.js, we essentially have a we need to define the array to store this task, and that is, as I've said before, square brackets. We need the square brackets to identify the array. Now here we have a function to add a new task to the list. Now in this add function, we call that here in the index.html. So once we click on the add task, so here we click on the add task. Say for example we have task 1, and we click add. So essentially the task is added there, and there's, as I've said, there's a remove button. So in the JavaScript, that is specified here. So if we press the add task, that corresponds to the add task button. So it would we have to call the function add task. So here we have the function add task. So it creates a task input. So we have to get the element by ID. So the ID there is new dash task, and we have it here. So new dash task. So whatever is the input of the user, so the system will get that. So here we input task 1. Okay, so the element ID is new dot task. Then after a while we trim that so that we can retrieve text input and remove leading trailing spaces. As you can see, we can remove the trailing spaces. So if, for example, the trailing spaces, we do something like this, space, and then we put task 2. Of course we don't want the spaces anymore, so if we click it, as you can see, there's no space before the task 2, so it's completely trimmed, and the command for that is value.trim. If task test is well, if it is empty, we ensure that the input is not empty, so it should not be empty. So the exclamation there means that it is not, so it's not empty. So we have to push now the text to the array. So we push the task. So essentially, if it is not empty and we press the add task, as you can see, it is being pushed, or it is essentially added. We add the task to the array, and then we have the new task input value. Then we clear the input field after adding. So as you can see, after we added the task, say for example task 3, the input field is being cleared. So the command for that is clear the input field by doing something like new task input value. So we now display the task. So this is also a function. By the word itself, the function here will display the task. So how do we display the task? So we call that the display task. We get the element ID task dash list. So where's the task? The task does we have the task dash list. So okay, so here in the unordered list, to display the task dynamically, the ID there is task dash list. So we will try to display it in the unordered list. So essentially it's here at the bottom. So as you can see, it's also displayed here at the bottom. It's an unordered list, so you don't see any bullet there. So here, after getting the element ID that is the task dash list, we need to clear anything that is existing before updating. So the command to do that is task list.inner HTML. Now we have to loop through all of the tasks and so that we can display them. As you can see, we have already defined 3 tasks. So it has to loop through all of that so that it could be displayed properly. And the command to do that is we set the index as 0, and then we loop, or we iterate through all of the task.length. So the length is the entire length of the task. So we have to increment it. So the commander is I++. So here we identify the task constant. So task, and we have the index I. So to get the task at the proper index. And here we have also the we have defined a constant list item, where we create a new list of items. Now the list item text content is set to task. This is set the text of the list item. So we also have the remove button. As you can see, there's a remove button here. So if you press that, the task is essentially removed. So the document that create element button. So we create a remove button. So in this list, you see that there's a remove button. So the text content, or inside the button, you will see the word remove. So here we set the button text, and also we set the function to remove this specific task. If you click it, on click, it will activate this function, which is remove task, and the corresponding index. So what's the remove task? Here, the remove task, along with its parameter, which is index, we remove the task at a given index from the array. So it's given by the index number I. So after removing the task, we again display it to refresh the displayed task list. Now here we have the list item that append child remove button. So it's append button to the list item. So it essentially adds the remove button as the child of the list item, meaning the button will be displayed inside the list item. So what will happen if we remove this? Of course, you won't see the remove button anymore. So let's try that. See? You don't see the remove item anymore. Wait. So let's try to do that. So we open in the Explorer. So here we have to add task 1. So we add the task. As you can see, there is no more remove button because we do not append it anymore. So we have to add that in order for us to remove some of the tasks. So here we have task list that append child. So this will append the list item to the task list container. So if we remove this, what will happen? We don't see the task anymore because it won't append the list item to the task list container. So let's try to do that. We remove it. New browser. So let's Chrome. So you won't see anything here anymore because we have removed that command. Task 1. As you can see, there's nothing there because we simply remove that task list append. We don't append the list anymore to include the task that we input. So might as well put that back in. So here we have the initial display of the task. Of course, if nothing is if the user will not input anything, then it's entirely empty, and that's the initial display of the task. So if any exists on the page by loading, it should be useful for future enhancement like local storage. Okay, so again we try to run the program again and then see everything. So here we add a task 1, and we click add task. As you can see, it's added there, and then we have task 2, and it's also added. Task 3, task 4. So what if we want to remove the task 2? So we click on remove. It calls on the function that is remove task, and in remove task, the task that splice will take care of it. It will remove the task from the given index from the array, and as you can see, it is being removed, and then we can remove the others, and that's it. We have carefully examined the to-do list manager, and we have explained the concept of list. Here we have created an array which is essentially task, and in the task we can add task to the array by using push, and we can also remove tasks at a certain index or a certain given index from the array by using splice. And also we have demonstrated the function display task, where we can display the task in the unordered list, and we do that by using append child. So task list, that's append child list item. So it will essentially append the list item to the task list container, and that's it. In the next presentation, I will discuss more JavaScript programming in combination with CSS and HTML. But for now, that's all, and thank you.